So Ty, you have done a lot of work, which I so admire, around repair and reparations. And I would love for you to talk, just give us, a brief introduction to what that concept and that word really means to you.
Yeah, I'll tell you, first what it doesn't mean is charity. It is not a symbolic apology. Repair is really about changing the conditions that produce the harm. And so it's very, as a lawyer, I think about repair, the framework of rights, remedies, institutional design, when you think of policy and structures and systems. And so, if a harm was created through the law, through contracts, land dispossession, as we've heard, school funding systems, housing policy, then repair has to operate at that same level. And that goes back to my earlier point about, we act like our hands are tied when we created our own problems. And so we can navigate our ways out. Repair has to be specific. I mentioned, examples with Keith being very laser focused in how internal state government creates opportunities and access for specific communities. For indigenous communities, that can be about returning land. It could be about cultural preservation. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Somebody's building a multi-million-dollar museum and supporting that work for 250 years from now to have an anchor institution that will house this state's indigenous history and future. For historically excluded communities, again, I'm reverting back to things like Keith's efforts, not only understanding the history to be able to navigate the future, but also being laser focused on the structural barriers and kind of opening up those levers. I think repair has to be future facing. When we talk about land back in these contexts, people, clutch their pearls and think they're going to take my home and things like that. But there are very creative ways we can address these things. On May 16th, I'm doing a presentation at Block Island for a group of land conservationists who want to restore access to the Manaseans, who are native to Block Island. And so they have a variety of legal mechanisms to do that. There's something called a cultural easement, where you can allow folks cultural access, who for cultural purposes, access to your land, and you record that easement on the record, and they have access to the land in perpetuity, under certain restrictions. There's actual giving land back through land trust mechanisms. And there are Yale University doing something very unique called a voluntary land tax. So the Nipmucs who are in and around the Yale campus, the tribe has its corporate status as a nonprofit entity, and the community in and around New Haven can it's called a voluntary tax as a symbolic symbol to communicate to the public, but it's essentially a donation to the tribe, which becomes tax-exempt charitable donation. And so there are creative ways to address it. There's a target on our historic ancestral lands. Well, Target pays the state of Massachusetts X amount percent in land and taxes. They can carve off 0.1% of their annual $1 billion revenue and put it in a trust for the tribe. There are ways to navigate repair that dispel fear and harm, because we have to rectify a historical structural wrong. And so I see repair as very specific, very focused, it's policy driven, it's kind of a participatory process,
Thank you.